Hello, it is Joyce DiDonato. I'm going to try my luck at doing this video sort of semi-outdoors because I don't want to be inside. So it might be a little windy and you might hear some outdoor sounds, but hopefully it will be pretty clear. I'm going to try and shield the wind here. I hope you all are doing really well. Of course, I wish this were happening in person, right? I wish that all of us could be in the same room together, brainstorm, hash out things, ask questions live. But hopefully that will happen again before too much time. As always with these kind of things, I like to try and be a resource to you, bringing to you not any right answers or wrong answers, but simply pulling on some of my experience and sharing with you what I've learned along the way. What I will say to each of you, other than I hope you're healthy, is that of all the performing artists that I know, every single one of us has taken a different path to the stage. And that's really important to remember. There is not one way. And certainly the people, when you look at the top of the field, people in the top of their level, most people didn't get there by a traditional way, by a conventional way. That's what I've noticed in not even just opera singers, but in different professions as well. The people at the top somehow had to overcome different levels of circumstance and often took very unconventional ways to the top. So I say that in that my answers here will only be my experience, but I beg you not to try and replicate those just to have that same experience, but so that you can find your own way through. I'm going to pull up your questions here. Yeah, I wish this were happening in person. This is Sarah Rowley, and looking back through my career, what would you say are the influential turning points that have carried you to the success you enjoy today? You know, I've often said that I didn't really have a big break. Every single one of my success points that I can say, like, there was that debut or this happened, every single one of them is directly linked to the thing that came before it, which is directly linked to the thing that came right before that. So I go all the way back to elementary school piano lessons. I go back to hearing my dad's choir in church and thinking, maybe one day I'll sing there. High school choir experience, college, deciding to teach versus anything else, and then deciding to be on the stage. All of these things had led one to the other. There were probably two really pivotal moments, and one was I was having a really tough time in my training. I was in Philadelphia, and I wasn't given much expectation or much attention at the place where I was. And I was sort of 23, 24, and it was clear that I was not going to be the one in that program getting roles or getting a lot of one-on-one attention. And I went into New York and I started taking voice lessons on my own. I had the realization that nobody was going to give me a career. And even if somebody did give me a career, nobody would be able to help me sustain it except myself. And so it was a really big realization at that moment to say that I'm going to have to be in charge because nobody's going to give it to me. The other was after I had done some study and had started to have a little bit of success. I was performing well, and consistently, but I hadn't sort of broken into that extra gear in the career. And what dawned on me was the only way that was going to happen is if I stopped worrying about trying to be the perfect opera singer and focused on what I wanted to say as an artist and as a performer. And the moment I started performing as myself, like really not the way all the programs had told me to, or conventional wisdom or tradition had always said this is the way it looks to be an opera singer, once I let some of that go, I went into the next gear. Emily Varney asks, what is my process for learning new repertoire? And is it different for each piece? Do you have a structure? Sometimes it's panic. Sometimes it's a necessity. But I always start by going to the piano. Um, I learned to play piano early on, and that was one of the great skills I recommend to develop and hone. And so I sit at the piano, and I love to just have that conversation between composer and myself, just to see what's on the page. And I love to look at the whole piece, not just, the highlights. If I need to translate, that will be number one priority. The first thing I do is highlight. I love that. I love the process of highlighting. And it always makes me a bit trepidatious because I always miss like a little interjectory thing, And then the first day of rehearsal, I'm like, oh, that's me. So highlight carefully. Translation, 100%. And then it's just methodical. There's a saying that, how much time does it take to prepare a role, and it's how much time you have. The longer you spend with it, the richer the reward. My goal is always to get to a place on opening night. Never happens. It always happens either in the course of the run or like on the third or fourth encounter with a role. But my goal is that when I walk on that stage, I have it so ingrained in me from a technical standpoint, from a theatrical standpoint, musical standpoint, vocal standpoint. It's to get to that point where I feel like I own it and like the character I'm portraying is creating it on the spot. So I'm writing the notes, I'm searching for the right words. And when I've been in the zone in those special performances, it feels really like it's being created on the spot. So that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of integration, digestion, and the best recipe is time, so it can really osmose. Georgia Kerwin, what do I think is the most valuable thing for opera students to do to continue to develop as artists during lockdown? I've been going through a huge pendulum swing during this period, which is now about 4.5 months in, clearly. 4.5 months. And I've swung between this is the greatest thing I've ever experienced to real difficulty. And I think it's because there's a huge level of uncertainty for our industry. I have no doubt it will come back. I just don't know what that's going to look like yet, but it will come back. In many places it is. Yeah. But there's that level of uncertainty, which, I know is particularly hard for young artists, artists of every place. We're all trepidatious about this moment. But it's also humanity at large, there's a lot of uncertainty. I'm watching what's unfolding in my country, and it's big because I think it's either going to go in one of two directions. I don't think there's going to be a middle ground. And one direction I'd be a big fan of, equality, justice, humanity, kindness, civility, all those things I hold in high regard. And the other, I think, would make for a very dark period in our nation's history and the world's history. And so that has held more of my preoccupation than my singing in this period. And I don't have an answer about what advice I would give to you during lockdown. I think the most important thing is to guard your integrity, to guard your idealism, to guard your artistry, to guard your humanity. Because there's a lot of things pulling us in directions that take us out of the center of those places. We question our artistry, we question our humanity, we question our connection to our fellow human beings. And also I think there's a tendency also to feel a little bit hopeless. And so I'm trying very hard to guard my optimism and my sense of hope. Of course, you can work on your languages. Of course, you can work on your technique. Of course, you can work on your body. You can work on your possession of your instruments. You can learn repertoire. All of those things are, I assume, pretty obvious. But I think the thing that will serve you best as an artist going forward is to really go inside and connect at a deep human level to understand yourself and the world a bit better, which will then give you a lot to talk about when you come back and a lot to express when you come back. But I would guard all of those traits that I think bring positivity and leadership and vision and creativity and imagination to the forefront, because we're going to need those when we get through this. Okay, what is my pre-audition? What was? I haven't had to audition for a while, sorry. I do not miss it. If I had to audition today, I would freak out. Okay, how did you get into the right headspace when you were likely to be in a room full of the competition? Ooh, okay, well, I'd recommend you changing the wording on that. It doesn't do you any good to think about any other colleague of yours as competition, even when you're vying for a job. I think if your energy is going out to the competition, right, it's going out. And the more energy that goes out, the less you have in your own power center voice, okay? Competition exists 100%. I mean, it's there. It will be there in every, if you choose to look at it, it will be there in every performance you give. Who's competing for more applause, the better review, the next job, all this kind. If you're always in that competitive frame of mind, you're not in the artistic expressive frame of mind. And I think that is where a real artist's power comes from. So my headset, now this is hindsight, right? I don't know that I was always this way, but it was my intention. The mindset has to be 100%. I talk about this in my master classes. The character. The words the character needs to speak, needs to utter. The subtext that's going on, that inner churning of the mind, of the expressive mind that's going on, searching for the sharp or the flat or the note or the harmony to find the right way to express the word morir or speranza, right? So I would always try and put my mindset, not to be overly pedantic about it and like not talk to people in the hallway because you're in the character of the countess, and you're going to sing Porgi Amor, so you're already in character outside. Maybe you need to do that. I've never been that type of performer. But I would have it so deeply ingrained in me and so rehearsed. I used to audition with Adalgisa's aria. And so the second that I could walk in and say, hello, I'm Joyce Di Donato. I'd like to sing Sgombra nella Sacra Selva from Bellini's Adalgisa. And I would take just a second and I would hear that chord and I would make sure that chord came from, not the piano, but came from the loneliest, most fragile, most vulnerable place that I know how to access within myself. And it's that. And so then the only mental space that I have is on phonating, on the text, on the need to express this music. It wasn't on how they're reacting to me. It wasn't on how does my voice sound. It wasn't, how's it going? Every once in a while, of course, you have to navigate it technically, right? And even still, there are arias that you have to just keep that 20% or 15 or 30% to navigate technically a phrase. That's fine. Especially the younger you are, the more you have to do that. But I'm talking about the goal is 100% there. And whether you get the job or win the competition or whatever it is, it doesn't matter because you have brought that character to life 100%. So that's my headspace. That's what I try and do. Performances, auditions, I don't look at it any differently. Pacing myself in rehearsals. Love this. This is from Claire Hood. How much is it appropriate to mark for stamina, especially when feeling under pressure? From the conductor, the director, to always sing out. Well, you have to know your instrument, and what works for me won't work for you. You have to think about this as an athlete. Part of you have to build the stamina. You have to know how to get from point A to point Z. And remember that point Z usually comes at about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, right? So you have to be conditioned physically, vocally, all of that. I like to sing in rehearsals, especially if the role is new, but you have to monitor. And when you're doing too much and when you're crossing the line, back off, because that doesn't serve anything. I've talked about this in my classes, sometimes I use rehearsals to really concentrate just vocally, and sometimes I use rehearsals to concentrate theatrically and separate those two things a little bit if I have a long rehearsal period. And then I have the time to kind of slowly bring them together and marry them and find out how much physically can I do, how much vocally do I need to calm down and center. And you only learn that from rehearsal. So I'm 100% in the character, I'm 100% there all the time in rehearsal. Don't waste 1 minute. Don't automatic pilot any minute of rehearsal. That's lost time for you to explore and plunge and surgically go inside vocally and theatrically what's happening with your characters, right? So don't waste any time. And sometimes if I know I'm going to mark a rehearsal, I'll go to the director or the conductor beforehand and I'll say, just so you know, I'm just going to mark some of this, but I'm going to sing out tomorrow. And be like, okay. I always tell the conductor I always tell the stage director on the first stage and orchestra rehearsal, when all this time has been set on the staging of it, I always say, look, I know what I'm doing, don't worry about me theatrically, but I'm just going to eyes on the conductor in these rehearsals. And they go, yeah. Because they've seen how I rehearse. And they're not worried about me, having motivation issues or anything like that. So if you win the trust of your conductor and your director at the beginning, they'll trust you. I mean, for Lord's sake, don't mark music rehearsals and don't mark orchestra rehearsals. No. No. Okay. Hannah Boxall. How do I prepare on the day of a performance? And how do I keep my voice warm if I have a time between being on stage and off? Vocal tips. And finding new repertoire. That's a lot of questions. The day of a performance, I think my greatest strength as a performer, other than my rehearsal process, the stronger I've rehearsed and the better I've rehearsed, the better performance opening night I will give. I know that. So like I said, I don't waste any moments in rehearsal. The day of, the most important thing is rest. If my body's really rested, then I'm putting myself in the best position to have a good show. So I sleep in usually. I've got to move. I've got to do like some stretching, some yoga, get some movement going. If it's a new role, if it's a big new role, earlier in the day, I'll go through the score quietly. I mean, I won't talk anything, but just mentally go through the score. I'll try and do something not related to opera at all, something really apart, so that my mind has a chance to reset, like an Etch-a-Sketch. I will do that. And yeah, the main thing is if I've rehearsed well, my nerves are much less because I know what I'm doing. And if I'm rested, I know that my voice will be in the best possible shape it can be that day. May not be 100%, but it'll be good. Yeah, and I always love it. I love the performance day. Alyssa Mundi. Of all the opera's recitals repertoire, what do I find the most joy in singing? No, I don't have a favorite role or aria or song. It's like always whatever I'm singing at the moment. The most joy in singing. I mean, it all brings me joy. I find it quite powerful to have the privilege, because what we do is a privilege. I find it quite powerful to open up, to breathe and open up my mouth and have music that was written by geniuses come through my brain and my breath and my pharynx and my larynx and all that. Music that has oftentimes existed for hundreds of years. Music that's been sung by great artists across the centuries that have said the same notes, the same words, but never in the same way and never at this moment. And to bring those to life, oftentimes for people for the first time. So it's as if I'm part of the creative process. I get to participate or witness it somehow. And to then have that direct connection to an audience in real time, but from something that I think comes from, I don't know, some powerful place above. Because it makes everything that we are so much bigger than just one person or one thought or one vibration, one note, you know? It makes me feel connected, and I love that sensation. Yeah. Doesn't always happen. I have to remove myself from the equation to experience that. You know, I can't be thinking about how do I sound, how do I, what are people thinking, do they like me? I can't have that present. I just have to go really deeply into the music and sort of ride the wave of that. What did I do when you asked the other question, when I broke my leg in London? Why did I decide the show must go on? I don't know. Adrenaline, ignorance, stupid. I didn't know my leg was broken. And for me, the show always goes on. And I can find a way to do it. I can make this happen. And, we improvised. The cool thing about that show was it was, first of all, the cast full of friends and colleagues that I'd performed with a lot. So there was a high level of trust. And we all had done Barbara of Seville at that point, felt like a gazillion times. So we knew it inside and out. And we could have played it in a black box, almost in separate rooms, and still pulled it off because, we knew it. We knew each other so well, and we knew the story and everything so well. So in a way, I loved it. And as it went on, and I was in the wheelchair, it dawned on me that it's like, this is actually Rosina. I mean, she's trapped, right? And so I just used the wheelchair. I didn't act like I wasn't in one. I didn't act like I didn't have a crutch. It's like, okay, now Rosina's in a wheelchair. And this is her story. This is her costume. This is her life. And I used it. When you're on stage, you have to sneeze or something goes wrong. The worst thing you can do is act like it didn't happen, because in that moment, it's the only thing the audience saw. So use it and react to it totally as your character would do it. And you also ask, how do I stay attached to portray, but detached enough to stay in control of the performance? I'll let you know when I figure that out. Still working on it. That's really, really hard. I think the key lies in preparation, in total preparation, so that vocally I know exactly what I'm doing. There's no curveballs in the middle of the performance. And preparation. Yeah, so I can be 100% present in what's going on. The important thing to remember, this came from a director friend of mine early on, is that, the goal of what I'm experiencing as a character is not that I will experience it, but it's you, the audience, will experience it. So it's about delivering it, not feeling it so much. You will feel it, of course. We have music, how can we not? But it's not about you feeling it. You always have to think, what do I need to express? What do I need to release? What do I need to say? Who needs to hear this? So it's all action when you're on the stage. The minute it reflects back on you and you start to bathe in it and your sound and all of that. Well, you can do that every once in a while. But mostly it has to be about proactivity. But like I said, I'll let you know when I figure it out. Okay, 3 more questions. Sasha Hayek? Sasya? How do you deal with stage fright? Okay, same answer, preparation. The better prepared I am, the less nerves I have. The less I've prepared, the more nervous I am, 100%. And I tend to not battle nerves so much as excitement, adrenaline. I get really excited. And so if you're a driver, like my foot goes on the gas. I just think I'm just touching the gas out of the gate and it's like, let's go. And that's equally as dangerous as nerves because your engine is going so that it's hard to control and slow things down. So, I try and again just kind of stay in a middle road and but preparation, rehearsal. Rachel Spears, what's my advice for remaining positive and motivated for you guys, young singers on the edge of the career, who now are in the middle of COVID? So you should be out there doing your internships and your young artist programs and all of that. This is kind of what I spoke about a little bit. Some days you're like, okay, we're going to be okay. And others are like, is this ever going to work? I'm still trying to figure this out as well. And it's not clear how much support we're going to get from the powers that be. I know that, our art form has survived equally damaging, scary times, and some more so, because it has to. This is about the human need to connect and express ourselves, our essence. And I don't know that it's going to look like the same way afterwards. I don't know that. But I know there are still a lot of ways we can express and connect. And so I think my advice is use this time to do good work on yourself. Because, let's say you get your dream and COVID ends and you start having this huge, amazing career, right? You're not going to have a lot of time to yourself to sort of sort things out and do deep work on yourself, which I think is really, really vital as an artist to be doing that. So trust that process a little bit. And then find the ways to express yourself. For me, oddly enough, it hasn't been singing much. I've been trying to figure out how to do my hair. I'm teasing. I'm getting my hair cut on Saturday. Hallelujah. Take joy in the little things. But I think because I haven't felt, I've enjoyed taking some time off from singing. I'll be very happy to get back to it. But I've been doing writing and reading to sort of turn the engine, the emotional engine muscles, which is important. When you stand up on stage, you say you give a recital. It's all about that personal searching and the personal exploration. So trust that as being part of the process here, even if it doesn't involve what you've been studying directly, And then I would find the ways to reach out and sing. I know people that are giving neighborhood concerts, and it looks different than what we expected 6 months ago from our lives, but people really deeply appreciate it, and you'll be reminded why you sing, why you love to sing, why you love to connect. And I would go back to that other question as well about guarding all of those things that feed you as a person, positivity and hope. Because that takes a lot of work in these days, I'm finding. And finally, Nikki Martin. Have these all been women questions? There's no guys asking questions. Unless, Nikki, you're a guy. I don't think so. It's not, but it could be Nick. Nikki, just kidding. Okay, what did you do during these times at the start of your career when there wasn't much work coming through? I waited tables, and I directed a church choir, and I did telemarketing. Did you get other jobs, or did you keep working within the music industry? No, I was a waitress, so I learned how to communicate with different people. I did telemarketing. I was a church choir director. I sang in church choirs as well. I often had 3 jobs going at once while going to school. So I was out there working. I was working. And up until I was 27, when I got into the Houston Opera Studio, that was the first time I could afford not to work a side job. Barely, but I could pay my rent from the salary in Houston. Thank you, Houston Opera Studio. And, I wouldn't trade that. It was tiring. It was hard work. I didn't have as much time to study maybe as I wanted to, which was probably good because I wasn't putting in bad habits quite so strongly. So I had some bad habits early on. And it was that. Yeah, I worked a lot. And the thing is, I found any opportunity that I could to sing, weddings, funerals, church services, gatherings. I was even a singing waitress for a while at Graziella's and Victor's Cafe in Philadelphia. I made decent money. It wasn't terrible. So yeah, but I didn't do I wasn't an usher. I wasn't, I could make more money waiting tables. So I did that to help pay my tuition and my expenses and all of that. Yeah, it was hard. It was hard work. And I know there's a lot of people, that are working 3 jobs and we'll see how this, we'll see when I start back singing, because I might have to go get a job in a restaurant soon. We'll see. I don't know. I'm open to anything. I enjoyed my time then as a waitress. We'll see what I have to end up doing. I'm being facetious there. We're going to be back singing. I know that. And maybe the other thing that I'm finding strongly is that, going back to the first question about major breakthrough points, when I realized, I was about 25, I guess, and I was like, oh my God, this career is not going to happen because anybody does it for me. It's going to happen by what I do. And I'm thinking about that when we come back. It may not be the opera theaters and opera companies that make us come back. There will be many that do, but not all of them. It might not be the governments. Some of them will, but some of them won't. So maybe it's smartest if we find our way and we write our story out of this moment, and we write it the way we want it to go. And we create our next chapter as an industry. I really don't know what that's going to look like. I'm hoping that some of the mental rest and time that I've taken during this period will inspire me and bring me back to have brilliant ideas and energized and creative things. I do think when we start singing, we're going to have to sing about real things. And we're going to have to be really clear on how what we are singing applies to people's lives right now. I don't think we have the luxury of just singing pretty music. I mean, that has its place, of course. But people are going to need more as we go through this. They're going to need guidance. They're going to need vision. They're going to need understanding. They're going to need to be shown empathy and solutions. And everything in our industry contains those things. We have historical references for stories that show the way, a way that brings destruction and a way that brings peace. We have so many stories that remind us about what's really important in life: forgiveness, love, loyalty, family, nature. These stories and these songs that we sing about connect us to things outside of our own head, outside of our own state, outside of our own nationality, that bring us into humanity, connecting to each other. And I think if you all do the work of that clearly and deliberately, while still working on your technique and all those things, I think it's inevitable that your voice will be heard, because it needs to be heard when we're talking about those things. I remind you what I said at the beginning. These are all just my thoughts and experiences. I don't know that any of it's correct or right. I really don't. And that's part of the fun of it, because this is, certainly in my lifetime, the greatest opportunity for growth that I have ever seen on the planet in my lifetime, and probably of most times. We are in a really pivotal, exciting, exhilarating, frightening, scary, intimidating, astonishing moment where you and I, we get to participate in what direction we go from here. And I think our energy is better served not by being scared and intimidated about it, but by being active and engaged and loud, which is why we train our voices. That's what I think. Those are my thoughts for today. If I record this video again tomorrow, I might say entirely different things, but those are my thoughts for today. Listen, you all take really good care of each other. I'm really happy to be able to share these thoughts, reflections with you now. My biggest hope is that I get to hear all of you sing one day very soon. And I hope that you move me to tears and make a smile on my face that I can't get rid of for hours. And that you make me feel connected to humanity again. This is what I would love. And in the meantime, I'll work on getting back as well. And we'll hold each other's hands virtually and eventually literally. And we will come back. Okay? So work hard, stay positive, guard yourselves, guard your humanity, and we're going to be good. Okay? Signing off. And now I'm going to try and send this over the internet's webs at a speed of about 12 kilowatts per moment, kilobits, whatever they are. And this should arrive to you in the year 2037. Signing off. Good luck to you guys. Take care of each other. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Wear a mask. And we'll talk to you soon. Okay. Ciao. Did this record?